To Each a Tempo, an Ace Attorney and Elite Beat Agents fanfiction. Chapter 5. The doorway led Phoenix through a cramped turn of corridor to face a wall cluttered with computer panels and tiny, blazing colored lights.
Mr. Wright?
He hadn't noticed the room stretching away to his left until the voice pulled his eyes that way. Here was another red-costumed agent, moving a tangle of wires from her lap to get up. The revealing costumes were obviously a trend with female agents.
Hello, Agent Foxx here.
She flashed her gold agent badge and smiled apologetically, brushing snow-white hair out of her face.
Sorry about the mess. I've been on Hertz tweaking all day. Have a seat anywhere at all.
He had no idea what Hertz tweaking meant, but judging by the tools and wiring heaped in Fox's chair, forcing her to perch on the desk's edge, it was a very serious undertaking. Phoenix lifted a stack of electronic repair textbooks aside and borrowed their chair.
So?
Foxx leaned on her sliver of open desk space and searched the rattling piles of wire beside her.
Scenario's up on the whiteboard. As near as we can tell, that's what happened. Jay's the yellow dot and the victim's in blue.
It took a moment of examining the wall he faced, gaze magnetically opposed to all the algebraic notations, for Phoenix to spot the diagram she meant. Jay's marks were surrounded by wide yellow circles, and the victim's mark was fenced in by unsure blue lines. Both were surrounded by the doodled green equivalents of forests and buildings and streets.
Jay was patrolling this morning at approximately 11:18 a.m. down the path of Foster Park. The victim was attacked,
and Jay assisted.
That part was successful.
If the scribbled numbers and arrows were accurate, Agent J probably never saw Morna Beasley. Foster Forest visibility was good, but not that good.
He could do it from that far away?
Foxx glanced up from her work, a screwdriver the size of her pinky finger and a spider of impossibly fine wire.
I don't know how far you've been briefed. Think of music sense like a radio signal. Everyone's different, but Jay receives pretty well. He gets a clear sense at 600 feet, depending on the field and intensity of the rhythm disturbance. That's without visuals or triangulation.
And Foxx, Phoenix suspected, could slip into jabbering techno-speak as easily as she breathed. He rubbed his chin.
So, he knew the victim was in trouble, but he never actually saw what happened to her?
He didn't need to see it. Whoever attacked the victim left. Yes? Really? Try 2612.
Her gaze refocused on Phoenix, and she pointed to the side of her head.
We're working on a channel for you.
Too much of her long hair hung in the way for Phoenix to be sure, but the wiring Foxx worked on suddenly made more sense. It was the beginning of some sort of earpiece.
As I was saying, someone attacked the victim and then fled the scene. It seems that the police found the attacker's footprints, but we can't get close enough for confirmation. Approximately 2 minutes after that, another target caught Jay's attention near the bistro across the street.
Jay's whiteboard mark stretched across the street and into an alleyway dead end. Phoenix imagined a suited hero charging to the rescue, a professional now disguised as his scruffy client. It was a bit of a stretch. Only a bit, though. The scrawled numbers caught his attention.
680 feet?
Give or take.
Foxx stood, circled her desk, and typed on a tiny laptop, glancing to Phoenix.
The target was lost, and Jay was taken into police custody immediately afterwards. But nearly 700 feet is maxing out Jay's range. Whoever caught his attention was not happy. Panicking, maybe in pain. He should have checked in with HQ and requested visual confirmation of backup, but that's Jay for you. Tactics never were his strong point. Now, most of what we know right now is what Jay's tapped to us.
Tapped?
Infrasound transmitters in his shoes for Morse communication. They're a standard agency mod. We've disabled his voice communicator as long as he's under close police watch. The last thing we need is to get our signals traced. We know what Jay's tapped to us, so we're working to fill in the blanks and we're not even ruling anything out yet. Multiple attackers, even deliberate sabotage against the agency.
But how would anyone?
Phoenix scratched his head. If someone as benevolent as an elite beat agent was framed, plucked out of an intricate web of stealth and skill, what sort of mind could they be up against?
Unfortunately, not every mission goes as intended, Mr. Wright. A small fraction of the public has natural music sense and can tell when rhythm is being manipulated around them. never mind when agents are outright seen. And even if the target is unaware they are being helped, some missions fail, whether due to agent error or the victim's reaction to power. Maybe some missions fail simply because the situation wasn't meant to turn out. Who can tell?
She came to the desk's front and retrieved the delicate earpiece, adjusting its wires with a careful thumbnail. She frowned, thoughtful.
The commander keeps tabs on missions and their results, to better figure out how the agency can improve. Anything you find out, the slightest hint that a person was involved with the incident, let us know. We might have a record of that person in our database. Alright, let's try this out.
And it wasn't until Foxx was at his side, winding something thin and cool around his ear with deft fingers, that Phoenix realized it. She wasn't fiddling with the beginning of a communicator. This was the entire finished apparatus.
Your communicator is a little different, less visible mostly. Don't pause to listen to it, act normal at all times, and you shouldn't have to answer any difficult questions.
Phoenix merely nodded, and focused instead on keeping still.
Yeah, alright.
He'd get used to the foreign presence clinging to his ear, he supposed. Foxx stood back a step, ran a critical eye over him, and hummed approval.
I'll need somewhere to plant a mic. That badge of yours?
Oh, this? It's an attorney's badge. No one would believe that I'm a lawyer without it.
She took it with barely a glance. Why was Phoenix the only person in the world who found the badge interesting?
Should work.
She bent over the desk momentarily, hair spilling over her bare curve of lower back, and turned back to return the badge to Phoenix's collar. She then hurried to the laptop to strike some keys.
Now for a field check. Chieftain, say hello.
Agent Chieftain here. Good to have you on the team, Mr. Wright.
His badge didn't look any different to his eye. It was still just a little pin with a chipped gold finish.
Hello.
Loud and clear. Defendant lobbies 1 through 5 are clear of interference. On the move to 6 now.
Foxx watched the screen, her brows drawing with annoyance.
Still getting low band resonance. Did you recal?
Did I what?
Recal.
I don't speak tech.
Recalibrate. Set the channel to 00, sweep for interference, and reset to 2612.
The words clumped useless in Phoenix's mind, but it didn't matter as long as they made sense to someone. Static crackled brief in his ear, followed by a swell of mumbling hallway noise, and then the sound faded to silky quiet.
There, that's better.
In lobby 6 now. All clear?
Everything's a go, Chief, thank you. Good luck on Project Christmas.
There was an acknowledging mutter. Phoenix imagined a nod to go with it.
Over and out.
Bless him, he couldn't program a VCR.
Well, that was hardly fair. VCRs were evil old beasts.
I can patch other lines through, but you'll mostly be in contact with me, Mr. Wright. If you want to catch my attention without speaking aloud, touch the center node of the earpiece. It's pressure sensitive. Whenever a situation comes up, any time of day or night, I'll track down the info on it.
She meaningfully patted the laptop's edge.
My mission is to back up your mission, essentially. Whatever you need.
Then, the agency wasn't just his backup waiting in the shadows. The agency would be in Phoenix's ear, there beside him whenever he summoned. Not unlike a channeled friend. The formal feel of Mr. Wright itched harder than ever.
You can call me Phoenix then.
Her purple eyes lit with intrigue.
Oh?
If we're going to be in contact a lot, I mean, Mr. just doesn't sound good, right? If I'm not calling you Miss Nick is fine too, if you want.
Fair enough. Alright, Phoenix. What haven't I covered?
The details had just begun, it seemed. Phoenix retrieved pen and paper from his briefcase, and hoped he hadn't forgotten how to take lecture notes. It was incredible how much technology was woven into an agent's uniform. There were sensors and transmitters, tracking chips, and delicate metaphysical amplifiers. Jay's careful guard over the shoes made more sense now that Phoenix knew they held precious, and probably very expensive, secrets.
So...
Phoenix began sketching on microphone and wondering what exactly a metatreble resistor looked like.
have the police found any of this? They took Jay's suit for testing. And they might have his microphone.
Our designers are mad geniuses. They planned for the worst.
Foxx idly erased street lines from the whiteboard and redrew them straighter, more meticulous.
We use regular store-bought clothing and karaoke mics. They're just tailored to our needs. The suits don't have anything detectable in them, the shoes' insoles are locked up tight enough to be a repairwoman's nightmare, and the microphones are perfectly ordinary unless you break them down to nuts and bolts.
She paused and rubbed away some green smudges with her thumb.
The police are probably looking for fingerprints, DNA, residue, obvious traces on the outsides of objects. Draw attention away from hidden agent equipment if you can, and we might just be alright.
It was quite a gamble. Phoenix looked up to say just that.
Yes, it's taking a chance.
Was he really that predictable?
But uncertain situations are our specialty. Just go with it, Phoenix.
He swallowed and nodded. This would be another mess of a case to win on a wing and a prayer. You suppose he should have been used to it by now. Maya's excited chatter was audible long before she burst in, a purple-robed typhoon with Missy and Starr following in her wake.
On a mission and you forget the steps, do you just make it up as you go along? Hi, Nick.
Sure do. That's half the fun. How's it going in here?
I think we're finished.
Foxx gave the whiteboard a last cursory glance, and then she noticed Phoenix's sprawl of scribbled notes across his makeshift briefcase desk.
Just be careful with those, alright?
He gathered the papers, tapping them together into a sheaf. It hardly looked orderly when the sheets were all bent and smudged with cheap pen ink, but the thought counted.
They won't leave my sight, Foxx.
Nobody can read Nick's handwriting anyway. Not even Nick.
That wasn't true. You could make out at least half of it. On a good day. With a Rosetta Stone.
Anyway.
She began twirling silver keys around on an index finger and flashing a disturbing grin.
It's been a long day, and you guys probably need your rest for tomorrow. How about a ride home?
Maya clapped her hands together.
I call shotgun.
The nightmare visions of borrowed agent equipment returned, this time with more than one giggling girl prancing through smoldering rubble. Phoenix shot an anxious look between the other two agents. Starr shrugged and Foxx rolled her eyes.
You'll probably live.
Foxx pointed to her ear.
Remember, Phoenix, anything you need. Emergency response vehicles included.
Great.
And that was when realization struck him like a bat to the head. Phoenix juggled his briefcase aside to check his watch.
I should check back. Can we stop by the detention center?
If anyone could get them there before the last moments ticked away, agents could. Sure enough, Missy drove like a Formula One racer, and the chrome-gleaming agency car squealed in behind the detention center at precisely 5:58 p.m.
You should get a cool car like that, Nick. Maybe even your driver's license.
Phoenix boggled at her. It went unnoticed, as usual,
What would I do with it?
other than shorten his lifespan.
Lawyer business.
He definitely didn't want to know. But once his heart rate returned to normal, and Maya calmed down, and once the guards had been talked into a brief and very important consultation, it was detention center business as usual. Cold concrete and the glare of fluorescent light, stiff plastic chairs, and stern officers ushering Agent J in. Lot to learn, huh, Mr. Wright? Phoenix dug in his briefcase.
That's one way to put it.
Nothing we can't handle.
Maya swung her crossed ankles.
You don't have a thing to worry about with us on the mission.
Lifting two fingers and flicking them in salute, Jay smiled at her. Easy, but not enough to cover the tightness in his motions. The day must have taken its toll.
So, Mr. Lowe.
That's right. This client, according to any and all records, belonged to no agency. Phoenix nodded.
All right, so you plead the fifth when your lawyer isn't present. And as far as everyone knows, you're just a regular citizen to us.
If Foxx implied what Phoenix thought she did, a cover story would be arranged by morning.
But I still need to know anything you can tell me. So, is Stewart Julian Lowe your real name?
The same unfaltering smile as before. Maybe.
I think that's a yes.
Maya's elbow dug between Phoenix's ribs, and Stewart raked a hand through his hair and grinned sheepishly.
That bad a liar, huh? Alright, fine. That's me. I never thought I'd use that name again, to be honest.
Being an agent really is your whole life, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
No hesitation in Stewart. He had quick pride and a lion's gaze.
You can't be half an agent. I made my choice, and the music sense, it's like breathing. I can never just sit when I know somebody's in trouble. I can feel how scared and lost they are, and how all they want in the whole world is a friend to help them out. How could anybody turn their back on another human being like that?
How indeed. It was no different from seeing an innocent person held prisoner in the detention center and remembering how terrible that kind of loneliness felt. Fire stirred in Phoenix, and Maya nodded, tensing up with determination.
Absolutely. We won't let you down, Mr. Lowe. We'll figure out what really happened.
By cobbling the answer together in court, no doubt, under Edgeworth's relentless attack. Stealing at the thought, Phoenix put pen to paper.
What else can you tell us about this morning?
When all was said and done, Missy relented to driving them to Phoenix's apartment at somewhere near the speed limit, and she bade them goodnight with a wink. Cool dark crawled in. Phoenix shed his jacket like an old skin, yanked his tie loose, and leaned heavy over spread papers. Somewhere encrypted in his scribbled notes was everything he had to know and never repeat. Maya's chatter floated in from the kitchen, starting with bright cheer and quickly fading to regret.
Sorry, Pearly. He's a really important client, and everything's top secret. Maybe I'll be allowed to tell you about it after the trial.
Turning back to the notes, Phoenix forced his drifting attention to his jagged pen strokes. Foxx's tech-speak made little enough sense at the time, never mind in his own shorthand. He wished idly for that Rosetta Stone, and didn't notice the rich smell of coffee in the air until a mug clunked beside his wrist.
Pearly says hi.
Maya sat across from him at the dining table. Her sleepover mode was in full effect, complete with loose hair, the oversized chili-stained Ronin Rangers t-shirt, and a gaze like she wanted nothing more than to paint Phoenix's toenails. Nodding thanks, he took the mug and downed a searing gulp. Sleeping before a first trial day proved hopeless most of the time anyway. A frown swept over Maya's face.
You're sure we can't tell her? It's Pearly. Maybe she can help.
See if you can make out any of this, will you?
Phoenix passed 2 sheets across the table and let his brow furrow.
Maya, you heard what Commander Khan said. This is all strictly confidential.
Maya picked up a page and pouted ferociously at it.
I guess so. But you know you can count on us, Nick.
He knew that. Not a day went by that Phoenix wasn't grateful. Night dragged on, and the coffee pot drained, and Phoenix still couldn't figure out what on earth a meta-triple resistor was for. He shoved the messier pages aside and leaned back in the hard kitchen chair. He had compiled the standard agent equipment functions, and Maya's summary of music sense, and all relevant points of Stewart J. Lowe's account. Phoenix couldn't manage more than that on his own, and he only had a few hours to wait. But that didn't stop the nagging thoughts of people to needle for information, places to scour, the earpiece linking him to a far-reaching database. He turned the empty mug between his palms and watched Maya. Anyone else would think her deeply asleep, head pillowed on her arm, probably drooling on the notes knowing Phoenix's luck, but he knew better. He recognized the slow prickle of magic, the presence creeping down his spine, and the tune at his senses' blurred edges. Maya was actually suspended in trance. The tick of the wall clock across the apartment began to grate in the silence, and Phoenix watched out the window instead. Dark, run-down housing crowded around his apartment, but the silver, starry sky he could see was interesting enough. And then, time twitched forward. A chunk of memory was gone, and he was crisply aware of existing. Phoenix's heart leaped glorious like it did every time she returned. He looked back across the table as she stirred, turning sleep-misted eyes to him.
Hello.
Mia Fey had arrived. He straightened and offered her a smile.
Good to see you, Chief.
She straightened as well, slower. glancing around to get her bearings and tugging the t-shirt even on her borrowed body's curves.
Burning the midnight oil, I see.
So much for strict confidentiality. But if anyone bent secrets to their will, it was Mia, the woman even death couldn't stop. Phoenix sighed and waited until she was done reading both sides of Maya's letter.
Elite beat agents are real. The rumors are true. But no one can find that out. And I don't even know yet what I'm gonna do about Stewart. I just hope we can keep the story straight.
He ran a palm over his face. How could he fight for truth under false pretenses? It defied everything Phoenix stood for. It made him little better than the schemers he exposed on the stand. He remembered Stewart through plexiglass, tense with the strain of lying.
Phoenix.
Mia's mouth tightened. She lit with fierce justice. It shone in her eyes.
The truth isn't always tidy. Remember what your job is. Your client is innocent, right?
Yes.
He was sure this time.
Then defend him any way you have to. And seek the truth. This is serious. You have no room for error.
Like he needed to be told that. But under Mia's hard stare, while he stood an inch tall, Phoenix always seemed to sense plans falling into place.
Yeah, you're right.
He would fight because that was all he could ever do. Phoenix looked to the scattered notes and found that his penmanship marked passing hours. It got worse on each consecutive page, melting and sagging like a burning candle's wax.
I just hope Edward's case is missing as many pieces as ours.
Mia folded her arms under her chest, smirking.
It's not like Edgeworth to be unprepared for a fight.
Well, there's a first time for everything.
Look, Phoenix. You have an entire network of highly skilled operatives at your back from what Maya says. And I'll be there tomorrow too.
Mia leaned across the table and laid a cool hand over his.
You'll do fine. Leave the coffee alone and get some sleep.
Easier said than done, but he nodded. The chief knew best. In the haze between dreams and daylight, Phoenix thought about his allies. He had friends to help him, plenty of driving presence at his flanks. To Each a Tempo was written by Pyrasaur. Ace Attorney and Elite Beat Agents are owned by Capcom and Enis, respectively. The narrator for this story is Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Phoenix Wright is Lastni. The voice of Maya Fey is Miki. The voice of Mia Fey is Maxi. The voice of Agent J is Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Agent Chieftain is also Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Agent Starr is Swivelswirl. The voice of Agent Missy is Airbricka. The voice of Agent Foxx is Galen Skibyak. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.